Look, I need you to stop scrolling right now because what I'm about to share with you has been sitting in church cookbooks, handwritten recipe cards, and the memories of grandchildren who still miss those kitchens. These are the meals that kept families alive, not just fed, alive. When the rent was due, when the check hadn't come, when there were six mouths to feed and maybe $12 in the purse, Big Mama went to that stove and she worked a miracle. Today we are counting down 25 forgotten poor man one-pot meals that Black grandmothers have been making for generations, specifically for seniors living alone who need something cheap, filling, easy to make, and soul-satisfying. If you grew up in a Black household, some of these are going to hit you right in the chest. And if you never experienced it, consider this your education. Let's get into it starting at number 25, pot liquor soup with cornbread dumplings. Now, pot liquor is that rich, dark liquid left over after you cook collard greens or turnip greens down low and slow. Most people throw it away. Big Mama did not throw anything away. She saved every drop of that liquid, brought it back to a boil in that same pot, and then she dropped in cornbread dumplings made from just cornmeal, a little flour, salt, and water mixed together until thick and spooned right into the boiling liquor. She covered that pot and let those dumplings steam for about 20 minutes. What you end up with is a smoky, deeply savory soup that has nutrients from the greens absorbed right into the liquid. The hack here is to add a smoked neck bone or a ham hock to the original greens if you have one, because that collagen breaks down into the liquid and makes the pot liquor almost silky. This works because pot liquor is essentially a mineral-rich broth that would otherwise go to waste, and cornmeal dumplings are one of the cheapest fillers you can make. Number 24. Neck bone and rice. This is a staple that has fed generations, and it costs almost nothing. You take smoked or fresh pork neck bones and you season them with garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper, seasoning salt, and a little cayenne. Brown them in your pot with a little oil until they get some color on them, then add diced onion and let that cook down. Add enough water to cover everything by about 2 inches, bring it to a boil, then drop the heat low and let it go for at least an hour. The neck bones release all of that collagen and marrow into the water, creating a thick, rich gravy naturally. Then you add your rice directly into that same pot, stir it in, put the lid on, and let it absorb all of that flavor. The hack is to add a splash of Worcestershire sauce and 1 tablespoon of tomato paste when you brown the meat. This creates a deeper color and a richer flavor that tastes like you cooked it all day. This works because the tomato paste caramelizes and adds umami depth without costing barely anything extra. Number 23. Pinto bean and fatback stew. Dried pinto beans are one of the cheapest proteins available, and fatback is the cut that Black grandmothers have relied on since before anyone can remember. You soak your beans overnight, drain them, and put them in your pot with a chunk of fatback or salt pork. Cover with water, add a whole onion cut in half, garlic cloves, black pepper, and a bay leaf. Let this simmer for 2 to 3 hours until the beans are completely tender and the broth has turned cloudy and thick. The fatback slowly renders into the broth, giving it a rich pork flavor throughout every single bean. The hack here is to mash about a cup of the cooked beans against the side of the pot and stir them back in. This naturally thickens the stew without any cornstarch or flour. It works because the starch inside the beans acts as a natural thickener, and seniors living alone can portion this out for multiple days, making it one of the most economical meals on this entire list. Number 22. Salmon patty skillet with canned vegetables. Canned salmon has always been a budget hero in Black households. Big Mama kept 2 or 3 cans in the cabinet at all times. You drain the salmon, remove the big bones, and mix it with a beaten egg, crushed crackers or breadcrumbs, diced onion, black pepper, and a little hot sauce. Form into patties and fry them in a cast iron skillet with a little oil until golden and crispy on both sides. Then in that same skillet, with the drippings still in there, you add a can of mixed vegetables or corn, season it up, and let everything come together for about 5 minutes. The entire meal comes out of one pan and costs under $3. The hack is to add a spoonful of mustard to the salmon mixture before forming the patties. It acts as a binder and adds a subtle tang that makes the patty taste like it has way more seasoning than it does. This works because mustard emulsifies and holds the mixture together while boosting flavor with ingredients you already have. Number 21. Chicken back stew. Chicken backs are the most overlooked and cheapest part of the chicken, but they are loaded with flavor. You season your chicken backs generously with all your seasonings, including garlic, onion powder, paprika, black pepper, and seasoning salt. Brown them in your pot, add diced onion, celery if you have it, and diced potatoes. Cover with water, add a can of cream of mushroom soup or just plain water if you don't have it, and let it simmer for 45 minutes until the meat falls off those small bones easily. The broth becomes incredibly rich from the bones. The hack is to add half a cup of uncooked rice or small pasta during the last 20 minutes so it absorbs all that flavor. This works because the connective tissue and cartilage in chicken backs break down into gelatin, creating a natural thick gravy that makes you think someone added a roux. Number 20. Crackling cornbread and bean soup. You make a simple pot of white navy beans cooked down with onion and smoked meat. Then you make a small pan of crackling cornbread on the side or right on top of the beans in a cast iron skillet. Cracklins are just pork skin that has been fried crispy, and they go into the cornbread batter along with cornmeal, egg, buttermilk, and a little baking powder. You pour that batter right over the top of the beans in the oven-safe pot. Bake at 400 degrees for about 25 minutes, and you have a complete one-pot meal where the cornbread soaks up the bean broth from underneath while it bakes on top. The hack is to rub the inside of the cast iron skillet with lard before pouring in the batter. The bottom of the cornbread gets a crust that is almost like cracklin itself, and it lifts clean out of the pan. This works because the fat from the lard conducts heat evenly and creates that signature crackling bottom that Black grandmothers have always been known for. Number 19. Oxtail and white rice porridge. Oxtail has gotten expensive lately, but this dish was originally a poor man's meal because it was the throwaway cut. You brown oxtails in your pot with oil and season with all your staples. Add onion, garlic, allspice, and bay leaves. Cover with water and let it go low and slow for 3 to 4 hours until the meat falls off the bone completely. Then you add white rice directly to the pot and let it cook in that rich, beefy broth until the rice breaks down into a thick porridge. This is comfort food at its most fundamental level. The hack for seniors is to cook it in a slow cooker on low for 8 hours because you can set it and forget it, which is perfect if you are older and cannot stand over a stove. The collagen from the oxtail makes this incredibly joint-friendly and easy to swallow, which matters a great deal for seniors with dental concerns. Number 18. Dried lima bean and ham hock pottage. Lima beans were a garden staple in southern Black communities, and Big Mama grew them herself when she could. You cook dried lima beans with a smoked ham hock, diced onion, garlic, bay leaves, and black pepper in a large pot of water for about 2 hours. The ham hock falls apart and the meat integrates into the beans. You end up with a thick stew that is hearty enough to be a full meal. The hack is to add a can of diced tomatoes about 30 minutes before the beans are done. The acidity brightens the entire dish and cuts through the richness of the pork in a way that makes it taste completely different and more complex. This works because tomato acid balances the fat from the ham hock and prevents the dish from tasting one-dimensional or heavy. Number 17. Leftover biscuit and gravy soup. When Big Mama made a big pan of biscuits in the morning and there were leftovers, nothing got wasted. She made a simple white gravy using flour, butter, or bacon grease, and milk seasoned with black pepper and salt. Sometimes she added crumbled breakfast sausage if she had it. Then she broke the leftover biscuits directly into the pot of gravy and let them soak and swell up until the whole thing became a thick bread-based soup. This is honestly one of the most filling and cheapest things you can make. The hack is to add a pinch of smoked paprika and garlic powder to the gravy because plain white gravy can be flat, and those two spices wake it up and give it a flavor that makes people ask what is in it. This works because smoked paprika in particular mimics the flavor of meat even when no meat is present. Number 16. Turnip green and corn dumpling stew. You wash and chop your turnip greens and cook them down in a pot with smoked neck bones, onion, garlic, crushed red pepper, and enough water to make a broth. While that cooks for about an hour, you mix a quick corn dumpling batter from canned cream corn, cornmeal, a little flour, salt, and 1 egg. Drop spoonfuls of that batter into the simmering greens broth and cover the pot for 20 minutes without lifting the lid. The dumplings steam and puff up and absorb that smoky green-flavored broth. This is one of those dishes that makes you close your eyes when you eat it. The hack is to use canned cream corn instead of water in the dumpling batter because it adds sweetness, moisture, and flavor that plain cornmeal dumplings simply cannot achieve on their own. Number 15. Chitterling and cabbage stir stew. Now, some of you might have turned your nose up at that word, but listen. Chitterlings, or chitlins as they are known in the community, have been a sacred dish in Black culture for centuries, born from necessity and transformed into tradition. You clean and boil your chitterlings until tender, which takes several hours. Then you add shredded cabbage, sliced onion, vinegar, red pepper flakes, and black pepper to the same pot. Let everything cook together for another 30 minutes. The result is a tangy, spicy, deeply savory stew. The hack is to add apple cider vinegar generously because it neutralizes any strong odor and also tenderizes the cabbage simultaneously. This works because the acetic acid in the vinegar breaks down fibers in the cabbage while its volatile compounds help neutralize odors during cooking. Number 14. Rice and gravy from scratch. In Louisiana and throughout the Deep South Black community, rice and gravy is not a side dish. It is the meal. You make a dark roux in your pot using equal parts flour and oil, stirring constantly over medium heat until it turns the color of chocolate milk. Then you add the holy trinity of onion, celery, and bell pepper and let it cook in that roux. Add water or stock and whisk until smooth, season with garlic, thyme, salt, and pepper, and let it simmer until thick. Pour over white rice cooked in the same pot if you stagger the timing right. The hack is to get that roux as dark as you possibly can without burning it, because every shade darker means more flavor depth. A Cajun grandmother will tell you that patience with the roux is everything, and she is absolutely right. The Maillard reaction happening in that roux is what gives the entire dish its complexity. Number 13. Hog maw and potatoes. Hog maw is the stomach of a pig, and it is one of those cuts that the Black community, particularly in the Carolinas and Virginia, transformed into something special. You clean the hog maw well and stuff it with diced potatoes, onions, smoked sausage pieces, and seasoning, then tie it closed and cook it in a covered pot with water and bay leaves for several hours until both the maw and the potatoes inside are tender. The maw imparts a deep pork flavor to everything inside it. The hack is to add a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar to the cooking water because it helps tenderize the tough stomach lining and keeps the broth from becoming too gamey. This works because the acid breaks down connective tissue, making the meat more tender while mellowing any strong flavors. Number 12. Dried black-eyed pea and okra stew. Black-eyed peas on New Year's Day is cultural law in the Black community, but Big Mama made them year-round because dried black-eyed peas are cheap and filling. You cook them with smoked turkey necks or ham hocks, onion, garlic, and bay leaves until tender, then add sliced fresh or frozen okra during the last 30 minutes. The okra releases its natural thickener, that substance called mucilage, and turns the whole stew thick and rich without any added starch. The hack is to roast the okra in the oven at 400 degrees for 10 minutes before adding it to the pot. If you want less of the slippery texture while still getting the thickening benefit. This works because roasting breaks down some of the mucilage on the outside while preserving enough inside to still thicken the stew. Number 11. Fried salt pork and cabbage with pot liquor. Salt pork is one of the cheapest meats available, and it is pure flavor. You slice it thin and fry it in your pot until crispy, then remove it and cook shredded cabbage and all that rendered fat with diced onion until the cabbage is soft and slightly caramelized. Add a little water, season with black pepper and a pinch of sugar. Put the lid on and let it braise for about 20 minutes. Return the crispy salt pork back to the pot at the end. The result is tender, sweet, smoky cabbage with crispy bits of pork throughout. The hack is to add a splash of hot sauce and a teaspoon of sugar at the same time because the sweet and spicy contrast makes the cabbage taste incredibly complex and restaurant quality. Number 10. Cowfoot soup. In Caribbean and Southern Black communities, cowfoot soup is medicine. You clean the cow feet, hack them into sections, and simmer them with garlic, onion, allspice berries, thyme, scallion, and Scotch bonnet pepper for 3 to 4 hours. The collagen from the bones and skin turns the broth into a thick, gelatinous, deeply flavored soup. Add dumplings made from flour and water dropped in during the last 30 minutes, and you have a complete meal. Seniors swear by this soup for joint health because of the natural collagen content. The hack is to add a splash of dark rum or browning sauce because it deepens the color and adds a richness to the broth that makes it taste like it has been cooking for days, even if you started it this morning. Number 9. Sardine and tomato sauce over grits. Canned sardines were always in Big Mama's cabinet. You make a quick tomato sauce by sautéing onion and garlic in your pot, adding a can of diced tomatoes, seasoning with black pepper, hot sauce, and a little Worcestershire. Drop the sardines in whole and let them warm through and break apart slightly in the sauce. Then pour that sauce over a bowl of buttery, creamy grits cooked in the same pot after you remove the sauce. The sardines melt into the tomato sauce, creating something that tastes almost like shrimp if you didn't know better. The hack is to add a tablespoon of butter to your grits and stir vigorously off the heat because the emulsification makes the grits incredibly creamy without needing cream or extra fat. This works because butterfat coats the starch granules and creates a silky texture. Number 8. Smothered chicken wings in onion gravy. Wings used to be the cheap part of the chicken before the world caught on. You season your wings, brown them in your pot on all sides, remove them and make an onion gravy in the same pot by cooking down thinly sliced onions in the drippings until they turn golden and jammy, then adding flour, chicken stock, and seasoning. Return the wings to the pot, nestle them into that gravy, put the lid on and let them cook low and slow for 45 minutes until the meat is pull-apart tender. Serve right from the pot over rice or with biscuits. The hack is to add a can of cream of chicken soup to the gravy because it makes the sauce thicker and more stable and adds a depth of flavor that is hard to get otherwise. This works because the condensed soup contains natural chicken flavor and starches that prevent the gravy from breaking during long cooking. Number 7. Sweet potato and peanut stew. This stew has deep roots in West African cooking and shows up in Black Southern cooking in various forms. You cube sweet potatoes and cook them in a pot with diced onion, garlic, diced tomatoes, chicken or vegetable broth, ginger, cumin, and a generous spoonful of peanut butter stirred in. Let it simmer until the sweet potatoes are completely soft, about 25 minutes. The peanut butter gives the broth a thick, creamy, nutty richness that is unlike anything else. Add hot sauce for heat if you want. The hack is to add a squeeze of lime juice at the very end because the acid brightens all of those earthy flavors and makes the dish taste fresh instead of heavy. This works because acid activates taste receptors and makes your palate perceive flavor more vividly. Number 6. Pickled pig feet and bean stew. Now this is a dish that separates the people who grew up in truly black households from everybody else. You use jarred pickled pig feet, remove them from the brine, and cook them in a pot with the dried navy beans, onion, garlic, bay leaves, and enough water to cover. The vinegar brine that penetrates the pig feet gives the entire stew a tangy complexity that no other ingredient can replicate. Cook until the beans are tender and the meat falls from the bone, about 2 to 2.5 hours. The hack is to use about a quarter cup of the pickling brine itself added back to the pot because it seasons the beans in a way that salt alone cannot achieve. The tang cuts through the richness of the pork fat beautifully. Number 5. Cornmeal mush with pork cracklings and syrup. This one is old, older than most recipes on this list. You cook plain white or yellow cornmeal in boiling salted water, stirring constantly until it becomes thick like porridge, about 15 minutes. Big Mama would fry up cracklins, which are pieces of pork skin cooked until puffy and crispy, and scatter them over the hot mush along with a generous drizzle of cane syrup or sorghum. That combination of sweet, salty, savory, and crunchy over a bowl of hot cornmeal is something that cannot be explained. It must be experienced. The hack is to cook your cornmeal in a mixture of half water and half whole milk because the milk adds a creaminess and richness that makes plain cornmeal mush taste like something from a restaurant. This works because the fat and protein in milk interact with the starch in the cornmeal, creating a naturally creamier texture. Number 4, smothered pork chops and potatoes. You take budget bone-in pork chops and season them heavily. Brown them in your pot and remove them. In the same pot, cook down onions and peppers in the drippings until soft. Add flour and stir to make a quick roux, then add water or broth to create a thick gravy. Add cubed potatoes and nestle the pork chops back in. Cover and cook low and slow for about an hour until the potatoes are soft and the pork chops are falling off the bone. Everything is done in one pot and the gravy soaks into those potatoes, making them more flavorful than any roasted potato you have ever tasted. The hack is to use instant onion soup mix in the gravy because it provides so much depth and seasoning in one packet that you barely need anything else, and it costs practically nothing. Number 3. Poke salata and ham hock green stew. Poke salata or pokeweed was a wild green that black families in the rural South foraged when they had nothing else. It must be boiled 3 times and the water changed each time to remove toxins before eating. After that process, you have a tender, deeply flavored green that you cook with ham hock, onion, and garlic in your pot. The result is an incredibly rich green stew with that distinctive, earthy, wild flavor that you cannot get from any farmed vegetable. The hack here is important. Never skip the triple boiling process. This is non-negotiable, and every experienced cook who knows this dish will tell you the same thing. The safety matters, especially for seniors making it for themselves. Number 2. Cracklin' bread pudding. Near the top of this list is a dessert that Big Mama made when there was leftover cornbread going stale. She broke it apart into a pot, added eggs, milk, sugar, a little vanilla, and nutmeg, and pieces of cracklins for that pork fat richness. She baked it low and slow in that same pot on the stovetop or in the oven, and what came out was a bread pudding unlike any other, slightly sweet, savory, rich with pork fat and crispy bits throughout. The hack is to pour a thin layer of cane syrup over the top during the last 5 minutes of baking because it caramelizes on the surface and creates a crackling glazed top that is genuinely extraordinary. This works because sugar under high heat undergoes caramelization, creating entirely new flavor compounds that elevate the whole dessert. And the number 1 forgotten poor man one-pot meal that black grandmothers have been making forever, the one that represents everything about making something from almost nothing and feeding a whole family with pure love and genius, is neckbone and mustard green pot. You take those cheap, smoky neck bones, brown them in the bottom of your largest pot, add onion and garlic and let them sweat down. Add your mustard greens washed and torn by hand, a splash of apple cider vinegar, red pepper flakes, sugar, salt, black pepper, and enough water to braise everything together. Bring it to a boil, put that lid on, drop the heat to the lowest setting, and walk away for 2 hours. What you come back to is something transcendent. The greens have wilted down to almost nothing, but they are deep green and silky. The neckbone meat has fallen completely off the bone. The broth is smoky and sharp from the vinegar and complex from the mustard greens themselves. For seniors living alone, you can portion this into containers and eat it for 3 days. It is packed with iron, calcium, and vitamins. It costs around $4 to make a full pot. The hack is to add a smoked turkey wing instead of or alongside the neck bones if you want a slightly lighter version that still delivers that deep, smoky flavor. Smoked turkey has become the preferred option in many black households, particularly for seniors watching their salt and pork intake, and it works just as beautifully because the smoke is really what you are after in that broth. If you are a senior living alone, these meals are for you. They are cheap, they keep well, they fill you up, and every single one of them carries the memory of a kitchen that smelled like the best place in the world. Save this video, share it with someone who needs it, and tell me in the comments which one of these your grandmother made. Because I guarantee at least 3 of them hit you right in the soul. And if this video reminded you of someone you loved, do me a favor and go call them right now if they are still here, because some of us would give anything to sit at that table one more time.